What are irrational fears? Hi, I'm Miriam and I teach emotional intelligence skills. So, an irrational fear is a fear that your conscious mind knows is nonsense. To give you an example, when I had severe anxiety, one of my irrational fears was that somebody was hiding under my bed. Yes, just like a child might think. But this was a real fear. It used to terrorize me. Or I would hear a noise at night and my mind would immediately jump to the conclusion that there was an intruder who was going to kill me. My rational mind knew this was extremely unlikely, especially since the noise was usually something sounding quite different than a person breaking into my flat. But there it was. That was what my mind thought. Now, when I say the word mind, which part am I actually talking about? Because this is quite crucial. I use the word mind for any part of your brain that is not actually the conscious part. So the conscious part is where you are, where you think, this is where you make decisions and stuff like that. Now the mind is the biggest part of your brain, the bigger part, much bigger part, that takes care of keeping you alive. Now it does this with the non-conscious bits that take care of your organs working and reflexes and stuff like that, and that tell your digestion what to do. But there's also a large part of your mind that can communicate, so you are aware of it, but you're not actually in control of it. And that part is in charge of automatic actions, what we often call reactions. So when you practice an action often enough, especially if it's a response to a very strong emotion like fear or anger, then this becomes a reaction over time, meaning your mind, the part you are not really in control of, triggers the action automatically. Some of these actions are stories we tell. So when I heard a noise, my mind reacted to the fear for the unknown by telling a story, a specific story that there was somebody breaking in. Okay, so what did I do? Here, this is the part that becomes really interesting. My conscious mind tried to talk my other mind out of the story. Now, knowing what I know now, I know that this is actually a really weird reaction, because why would I do that? Why wouldn't I just get up and check? Or if I was afraid someone was hiding underneath my bed, why wouldn't I just check underneath the bed that there was nobody there? It takes 30 seconds. Why would I do that? Because we are trained into believing that we have to control the mind, that we have to be in charge. So when the mind tells this story, which we practice so often that it runs automatically, we think we need to talk the mind out of it instead of just showing the evidence. And that's another story we are living. And here's the other thing, it doesn't work. You cannot think your way out of this. You cannot think your way out of reactions. These kinds of reactions, these kinds of stories. Why? The larger part of your mind, its main purpose, its only purpose is to keep you alive. It has practiced these stories because it genuinely believes that these stories will keep you alive. So you cannot talk it out of that. What did I do instead? When I thought about the way this happened, this was a loop. I would hear a noise and would tell the story automatically. It was a reaction. And then I would try to talk myself out of it, which was also a habit, a thought habit, which clearly never, not even once worked. I would just get more agitated because my conscious mind would argue with my other mind, and which would just repeat the story. We're in danger, we're in danger, we're in danger, more fear, more fear, more fear. And I was like, this is not working. And then I thought, well, I could just check. I could just walk around and check. And then that's what I did. So yeah, I got down on my knees. I checked under the bed that there was nobody there, to calm and soothe my mind. To tell my mind, we are safe. You're okay. There's nobody there. There's no need to be afraid. And guess what? Worked like a charm. Now, on the very rare occasions where I hear a noise and my mind still tells the old story that somebody broke in, and really, seriously, these occasions happen like once a year. That's how rare this has become. Before that, I would tell the story maybe once a week. It was really, really upsetting. But now on the extremely rare occasions, the story still comes up. I just get up. I usually go into the kitchen because I try to now make my mind feel as safe as possible. So I get a big ass knife and then I check every single room. That's it. I just turn on the lights everywhere. I check every single room to soothe my mind. And guess what? Now I can go back to sleep because my mind knows we are safe. We think we need to control everything. We think we need to be able to control ourselves. So when our minds tell us stories that are clearly out of control, that are clearly irrational, meaning they make no sense, we try to argue with ourselves. And it doesn't work. I learned this sentence from a Buddhist monk. You cannot think your way out of it. And it's true. But that is what we try to do. We try to master the mind with the conscious mind. But the mind is very automatic. It's very visceral. It really has a single purpose. The single purpose is to keep you safe. And the mind will shout and scream at you and throw everything it has at you to make you do that. So to make you take actions that keep you safe. It's not rational. Think of it more as a very, very scared toddler. And what you are trying to do is you're trying to argue with the toddler to make the toddler feel safe. It's not gonna work. The toddler needs a hug, maybe a blanket. The toddler needs a safe space to breathe. That's how you want to enact. That's how you want to work with your mind. And guess what? When your mind feels safe, these stories that used to take over become less and less. And when they come up, you know how to handle them. Now, why is this so important? Because the mind doesn't just tell you stories about something, about physical fear, the fear of feeling safe. There are other stories. For example, social anxiety is your mind's way of keeping you safe because it's an extreme version of the kind of fear we have as babies. As babies, we need to be loved. Otherwise, we die. And this is a very basic fear. So when we grow older, we have this story about rejection means death. Literal death, not social or emotional death, literal death. That's what your mind is afraid of when you have social anxiety. And you gotta treat it exactly the same as any other kind of fear, any kind of visceral fear, because for your mind, this is very real. This is a very real fear. It's a terrified toddler you're dealing with here. So dragging them to parties you don't want to go to places where they do not feel safe, is just going to make the anxiety worse. So what can you do? You gotta feel calm before you can do anything. You gotta be, kind. Be kind to yourself, be kind to your inner tiny toddler. When you go to a party and you suddenly freak out, leave. Forget all the other stories about responsibility. Your first responsibility is always to yourself, to feeling safe. If you don't like big crowds, don't go into big crowds. Find your other place. Find a different place with different people who enjoy small crowds like you do. Find people who like to hang out in really small groups or just together. Once you stop resisting so much, once you stop telling the other story that you need to be like everybody else, that you need to live up to other people's ideas, to other people's stories, and just relax and ask yourself, okay, how can I work with this? What works for me? What is good for me? What keeps me from freaking out? And what keeps me feeling safe? Your path becomes so much clearer. You just know what you want to do next. You know how you want to interact with people. And the best part, once you know, you go for the kinds of activities that make you feel safe. And guess who you meet? More people like you. So whether it's social anxiety, whether it's more visceral anxiety about, physical safety, understand that yes, your mind is irrational, and that's okay. That's its purpose. That's what it's for. It's not meant to be rational, because rationality is a concept we are taught. It's a human invention. It's defined differently in different countries. So it's just another story your conscious mind tells that conflicts with your non-conscious mind. What do? You make sure that your mind, the part that tries desperately to keep you safe, feels safe. That's your number one priority. And after that, you can all skip over meadows together. But first, you feel safe. All right, and that's how you deal with irrational fears. All the best to you. Know that you can absolutely do this, because if I can do it, you can too. And if you need a little bit of help, if you want to learn more techniques about how to stay calm, how to soothe yourself, I do have a free course, A Month of Peace. Check out the link in the description. And if you found this helpful, please click like. It is very motivating to me. And I will see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day.